Hi, my name is Paul Iwancio, and in this brief screencast, we're going to talk about how to create effective discussion boards. So first, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. And for the purposes of this screencast, I define a discussion board as a threaded discussion that's hosted online. It's conducted asynchronously. So that means not live, but over time. You may not realize it, but there are different types of discussion boards, usually defined by their purpose and their function. Introductions is one type where everyone in the course introduces themselves. Another one is assigned by groups that may or may not be able to see the other group's discussions. Some are hidden discussions until you make a post. Then you can see what other people have put on the discussion board. Another one is just open topics, so open to anything that might come up during a course. Another one that some LMSs and discussion hosters allow is anonymous. And you may wonder, why would I ever want to have an anonymous discussion board? We might just have a flame war. But there is a great use for them. Anonymous discussion boards can be useful for posting those sticky, muddy, embarrassing questions where you may have a knowledge gap. So why? Well, discussion boards are the core interaction in an online course, and they're not limited by time and space. They are similar in some ways to a traditional classroom where a discussion might take place, but here the discussion could lead to more reflection and deeper thinking. It can also be media rich. The first activity in a 100% online course should always be a board where everyone introduces themselves. According to research, ideally we'll see three types of interaction going on. First, student to student. Next, student and the content of the course. Thirdly, student-teacher interaction should be taking place. Now, quiet, introspective students can get their voices heard in an online discussion board where they might not have that happen in a face-to-face class. Extroverted students, on the other hand, can get the time to reflect. The discussion boards can also address some accessibility issues where they can include audio or writing. Typically, discussion boards happen on the LMS. You may have Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, Schoology, something like this. But there are other places where discussions can take place besides just in a traditional LMS discussion board. You can use Google Docs with the commenting features. You can use Google Plus Communities to have an asynchronous discussion going on. You can use Twitter for discussions. You can use other tools like VoiceThread, which I highly recommend that you look at, where you can have discussions around a multimedia object. So I encourage you to consider assigning roles in a discussion board. You could have a debate format, or you could have roles such as one person being the reviewer of the article or whatever was being discussed. Another person could be the critical friend. And then another person could be the summarizer, so at the end of the week could summarize all the thoughts that happened in that discussion board to the class and to the instructor. I recommend rotating these roles and groups. Have you ever considered bringing in a guest expert to your course? Most LMSs, and if you used one of those other forms, you could actually bring in someone else who was an expert to add to your course discussion. Don't forget, students could be your experts as well. I've seen general course-related boards where students are encouraged to answer each other's questions before the instructor pops in to answer a question. You might give extra points for this too. We've talked about the what, the why, the where, the who questions. Now let's look into how to run an effective discussion board. The first thing you need are ground rules. And there are great documents already out there that you should look at that tell people what kind of behavior is expected on the discussion board and what kind of behavior you don't want to have. Topics and tasks should be tied directly to your outcomes. Otherwise, students are just going to see this discussion board as a waste of their time. There's also a crucial need for clear directions and expectations. If this is a 100% online course, you really want to have those there. Otherwise, students are going to have to email you or somehow message you as the instructor to find out what was expected during that discussion board. Along with those expectations, I recommend a graded discussion board with transparent grading rubrics. This is a motivator for students so that they know what's expected of them and how to get that A. To get your discussion board going, use a variety of questions. Give the students choice. Go for deeper thinking. And encourage sharing of personal experiences. At the end of this presentation on my website, I'll have some resources that you can look at for more effective prompts. Many people have talked about discussion boards with these 3 analogies, not necessarily all at the same time. The first is that the moderator or the instructor is seen as a party host. You welcome the guests as they come in. You have certain behaviors that are expected. You may have a theme that goes on. And you keep the discussion and the party lively during the time that's allotted. The second is a tennis volley. So a really good discussion doesn't just happen with someone making a post and then no one replies. That's not a great discussion. So how do you get that volley going where someone posts something and someone volleys back? One of the great ways to do that is to encourage students to post back with questions. Then the first poster is going to have to respond back to that question, and you can get a volley going. The third one is the guide on the side. So this is more constructivist, where the instructor is seen as someone who just stays out of the discussion board until needed. If you see people going off track, going off topic, that's when you jump in. When you see things are going really well, you just every once in a while come in with some encouragement, but mainly stay on the sidelines. But don't stay on the sidelines too long. Make sure that students know you are there with them throughout the course. And I also recommend that you look at being very present at the beginning of the course and then sort of scaffolding, weaning them, not posting as much as time goes by in the course. But make sure they know you're there reading those posts. I recommend varying the content of your post. The cool thing is that in many LMSs, you can add video, you can add audio, you can add images, you can add some rich media to this. So it doesn't always have to be just something written. You can also link to something that might prompt a discussion. Many people have asked me, what's the right size for a discussion board? How many students should it be in there? And what you're trying to balance here is where's critical mass and where's critical confusion. I say that critical mass starts at about 4. I think when you just have 2 or 3 people in a discussion board, they might as well just be emailing each other, certainly if that was the case with just 2 people. But then you can go on the other end of the spectrum where there's just way too many people on a discussion board. This is when it gets above, let's say, 15. Certainly when you get to 20, that's going to be bad news. There's just too many posts for people to keep track of and keep up with. Most LMSs on their discussion boards will have this really cool tool that I don't want you to neglect. It's the search tool. And you can search the forum, the discussion board, for a particular word, person's name, and come up with that real fast. This is great when you have a really active discussion board to find the things you need to fast. The other thing is most of them will also have some sorting capabilities. We can sort by newest, oldest, by thread, and which ones you've read and not read. Now, if you're watching the screencast, these links are not going to work for you. So these resources will be at my website, paulwancio.com, and I'll have other things there that may be helpful to you. I recommend you also subscribe to my blog where I'll be updating things all the time. Thanks for listening and watching.